And this is the 5. The Obama administration retaliates against Russia after determining the country interfered with our election. President Obama announced a series of actions today and says the response won't stop there. More now from Fox's Rich Edson at the State Department. Rich?
Good afternoon, Kimberly. And a widespread response from the Obama administration, especially on the sanctions front. They have sanctioned the top Russian intelligence services, the GRU and the FSB, along with top Russian officials, individuals, and companies. On top of that, the U.S. is kicking out 35 Russian diplomats based in the United States. In a statement, the State Department says, quote, the department took these actions as part of a comprehensive response to Russia's interference in the U.S. election and to a pattern of harassment of our diplomats overseas. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham in a statement say, quote, the retaliatory measures announced by the Obama administration today are long overdue, but ultimately they are a small price for Russia to pay for its brazen attack on American democracy. The two senators say they will also push increased Russian sanctions in next year's Senate sessions. Also, the Obama administration says it is closing down 2 Russian pieces of property that the administration charges the Russians used for intelligence gathering. Russian officials say they will retaliate. Kimberly, back to you.
All right, thanks, Rich. Now, we haven't heard yet today from President-elect Trump, but yesterday he said this about the hacking controversy.
I think we ought to get on with our lives. I think that computers have complicated lives very greatly. The whole, age of computer has made it where nobody knows exactly what's going on. We have speed, we have a lot of other things, but I'm not sure you have the kind of security that you need. But I have not spoken with the senators, and I certainly will be over a period of time.
All right, so that response yesterday from President-elect Donald Trump, no word yet from the president-to-be, but definitely an international situation.
They're telling me Vladimir Putin is weighing in right now, and he's saying, quote,
yeah.
That's all you got? No, honestly, look, so they're expelling 35 Russian diplomat spies. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. And then the 2, what we'll call them cells, that one in Maryland, one in, I believe, in the West Coast. They're going to close those down as well. They were spying machines. Well, you should have done that a long time ago. But as far as sanctions, these are pretty toothless sanctions. There's no economic sanctions. There's no oil embargo sanctions. There's nothing like that. What President Obama has done, though, he's effectively painted Donald Trump in the corner. President Donald Trump in the corner, because Trump has, yesterday you heard that comment saying, hey, let's move on with our lives, meaning let's go forward, take the step forward and increase the relationship or embrace the relationship with Russia. But President Obama has now done is said, listen, Donald Trump, if you want to remove these sanctions, you're basically going against our FBI, CIA, DNI, and eliminating their opinion from what President Obama did. And I think that's a very difficult thing he's going to have to tightrope, probably with the help of the Russians. But as far as sanctions go, there was nothing there. There's no there there.
Now, Katie, what about this? The timing of it, with just, less than 3 weeks till there is a new administration really putting us in a corner here with Russia and saying, okay, these operatives are out. I mean, President Obama knew about this to begin with.
Right.
Why didn't he do something then?
Look, I think that President Obama's move to at least look like we're doing something about Russian interference is important, and I think we should take a step back and take politics out of this. I don't think that Democrats or Republicans should be cheering about benefiting or being hurt by what the Russians may have done. But that being said, I agree with Eric. This seems like a very weak response by President Obama, which means 2 things. A, it's deeply political, which is very obvious. And the second thing is that President Obama has to walk a very tight rope here, because if we respond with a full-on cyber attack, the Russians will respond to us, which could put us into a full-blown cyber war. And based on our infrastructure and what the cyber analysts have been saying over the past 10 years, the United States isn't ready for that. We don't have the infrastructure to protect against something like that. And so based on the timing, yes, it's political, but based on the long-term prospect of this, Russian interference in our national security and foreign policy, no matter what it is, whether it's an election or whether it's something else, we should all be condemning that, which
shouldn't be tolerated.
Right, shouldn't be tolerated,
Right.
regardless of who it
North
benefits.
from China, north from North Korea,
Korea
north from
or
anyone else.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think about the president's move?
Well, I think that the president was in a really tough situation. If he had acted before the election, folks like Eric would have been like, oh, he's trying to put his hands on the scale of the election, rah, 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 rah. So what the president says is, we waited to get the...
Rah, rah, like that?
Yeah, you say it just like that, Eric. Right? The president's waited to get the information. He waited for the election to be over. He responded. Now, also, we don't know what the president did that is classified. So, people in Russia could be without power right now. We just don't know.
Right, probably.
We just don't know.
that way
And Putin would never tell us if he did that.
All right, what about this response, Tom? What do you make of it?
Can we go back to the Cold War and do things in secret? What
We
is this?
are.
We're
just
announcing
don't know
everything.
it.
Look, we announced what we're doing.
We didn't announce all of it.
Well, oh yeah, and he said, oh, there might be some more. But we also announced that we could do more, but we don't want to because we can't. They said we can't deal with what would happen if we engaged in a full-on cyber war with them.
Right.
It's like if this were wrestling, they'd be like, I'm going to hit you back, but I'm going to hit you not as hard as you hit me. I mean, that doesn't work.
Football stage.
I'm coming from over here.
Yeah.
Can I say?
I want to talk about Putin's
what,
reaction.
Well, here's part of the problem. What we have here is that we're looking at, and Katie and I and a lot of conservatives are saying, well, that's not really. There's not many teeth to those sanctions.
Right.
Where are the real sanctions? And maybe because there's not enough evidence. We're still waiting to see the evidence. I heard 17 agencies said there's
what more evidence do you want?
How about something?
They did it
One,
today.
There was a 17-page
report.
report
No.
by the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security that said that Russia engaged in our elections. John McCain and Lindsey Graham are on a two-man ring show in Europe because they
believe
believe
they engaged, though.
Oh, Lord.
But we need to know that.
Look,
That's
we
relevant.
We
Jesus,
also
take the
need
wheel.
to
Yes. Carrie Underwood.
We need
Go
to
ahead.
reiterate that when we say that Russia was influential in the election, it would have no bearing on the outcome.
Well, that's
Donald Trump would have won regardless.
I actually agree with that.
Regardless of the interference
because-
here. So they make this statement that there was all this interference, and it implies that they were involved in hacking voting machines. That is absolutely not
There's
true.
no evidence of that whatsoever.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to remind people that regardless of the interference here, which we should take seriously moving forward, and Donald Trump should take seriously as a cyber warfare situation, this would have had no change in the election, and therefore people like Barack Obama should put his ego aside and realize that they lost.
So now, at one point on this, I agree with Katie. I think that the reason why Democrats lost is because we didn't have a conversation with working class Americans. I agree there, right? And I don't think the emails
Or a good
played
candidate.
Yeah, that's
fair. But the emails did or did not play into it. I don't really know, right? But I think what has to be said is that the fact that they did engage. If it happened to the RNC and their emails were hacked, I think it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Republican, Democrat, Nazi party. Everybody should have the fairness. They should have fair. There should be free and fair election. Yeah, the DNC emails were hacked.
Or were they leaked?
And the Podesta emails were hacked. They were hacked, and then Wiki.
We don't know that. Again, I'll say it
and
again.
he leaked them.
Show the proof, show the evidence that they were actually hacked, not for an insider.
I don't know
leaking.
how much more evidence
I
you want,
understand
Eric.
Russians giving it to WikiLeaks and have them leaked that way, but the question is how were they hacked? And frankly, honestly, the bigger issue is China hacking into everything we're doing, including all our businesses,
On a daily
all our
basis.
intellectual property.
I agree. Now, here's the thing. I think that the interesting problem for Donald Trump going into this is because for him to counterbalance China, he's going to need Russia to help him. So the more the president acts, I think the Trump administration and their foreign policy is going to be painted into a little bit of a box. And they're going to have to find new ways to counterbalance China if they're also fighting Putin at the same time. I give you that.
Why are we using the phrase interfering with the election? You used it in your read, Kimberly. We're using it on every news show. Why don't we stop using that phrase? Why don't we say what they did? They hacked into the DNC computers.
Right.
It's a judgment call saying they interfered with the election, and yet it is so, it's part of the national conversation now. Obama says it, and we repeat it. Why do we repeat it, Kimberly?
Because the Russians want you to repeat it, Tom.
I don't know, Tom. Probably a bad idea to try to call me out on the
Because
show.
Hillary Clinton needs a scapegoat. She needs for people to realize that or think that there's a reason she lost, other than, as Kimberly aptly points out, she was a terrible candidate.
Right,
It's
terrible
either the
candidate.
voting booths, it's the Russians, it's the alt-right, then it was the Russians again, maybe it was a voting booth.
I
Bottom
agree
line
with you
is
there.
she lost because
But there's still something to be said that you have a foreign entity hacking emails of a major political party in the United States of America. That is problematic for
Again,
our
show me the
election.
proof that they were hacked and not leaked.
So I think that.
But we don't know for sure is what he's saying, because okay, well you do. You had Julian Assange, who was interviewed by Sean Hannity, who said in fact it was provided, given to them that
That's a
they
leak,
did not
not a
hack
hack.
anybody. So that's a leak, and that could be from even
But
your own camp.
But the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI in a 17-page report, I read most of it, right? There was a lot of coding in there that I didn't understand, I'm sorry. sorry, not a coder. But it talks about the fact that the Russians received this information and then they gave it to Julian.
Yeah, that's true. No one questions that.
Exactly.
But
so when Putin gets access to a party's emails and says, I'm going to leak this because I want to interfere in or try to put my finger on the scale of our elections, that's problematic, Eric.
We still haven't proven that they actually were hacked and not leaked. And the other part that says those 17 agencies ended that report with, hey, trust us.
Okay, so we agree on the following. One, this looks like impotent rage. That's what I call it. When you go U-35, Das Boot, they get kicked out. Not very effective sanctions. Really not going to upset, offend, or keep Vladimir Putin up at night. Doing it in the ninth inning, Eric, instead of when he said he found out about it, President Obama, which was more like the first inning. He could have done something about it then if he was really concerned about any kind of interference with the U.S. election. Maybe they didn't want to bring it up because they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and now it's spoiled apples, grapes, oranges. Fruit of that sort. All right.
The whole fruit store spoiled.
Exactly. The whole fruit store spoiled. Coming up, a top lawmaker in John Kerry's own party is slamming the Secretary of State for going after Israel and forgetting the history in the Middle East. What impact will this have on the United States? We'll talk about that with our guest, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, next.
This is an American army. Hold your ground.
Well, it's hard to watch Secretary of State John Kerry's combative speech yesterday that was highly critical of Israel. Many lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were outraged by it, including the Senate's incoming Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. In a statement, the senator admonished Kerry for forgetting the history of settlements in Gaza, where Israel had settlers withdraw, and Palestinians responded by sending rockets into Israel. Schumer also said he fears Secretary Kerry has, quote, emboldened extremists on both sides. More now with our special guest tonight, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, professor of strategy and irregular warfare at the Institute of World Politics and author of Defeating Jihad. We're going to welcome Dr. Gorka. Now, Dr. Gorka, you said yesterday the administration will go down as the most anti-Israel U.S. administration since Israel was created. Here's my question, though. Have they been that way all along, or are they just now admitting to it and showing the world how really anti-Israel they are?
Oh, I think from the get-go. I think if you look at the last 8 years, what is the track record of U.S. foreign policy? Really, let's just look at what the legacy is. The legacy is that whoever you are, if you love America, if you want to be our friend, this administration will abandon you and will weaken you. Remember, the people who helped get President Obama elected were sent by this administration to Israel to try and defeat the re-election of Prime Minister Netanyahu. That tells you everything. If you are inimical to U.S. values, if you are a terrorist-sponsoring state like Iran, if you are an individual or a nation, a leader that rejects everything the founding fathers fought for, then you will be mollycoddled, you will be assisted, you will be empowered. That is the Alice in Wonderland world of U.S. foreign policy in the last 8 years. And I don't know about you guys, but I just can't wait for January the 20th, because we're going to do a 180 with this nation. We will treat our friends as friends, and our enemies will be on notice, Eric.
Doctor, we're going to bring it around, Dr. We'll go with Kimberly, but I just want to point out something. When you do what John Kerry and the Obama administration did yesterday, you offer currency. You provide currency to the Palestinians. They're at a negotiating table. They just gave them a whole heck of a lot of political currency. KG.
All right. Hi, Dr. Gorka. So you couldn't agree more with what you said just now and last night. It just really seems that he is going out of his way, President Obama, to undermine our one democratic ally in this region that's already on fire. And to what end do you think that he is doing this? Is it part of the reason to create a problem for President-elect Donald Trump going in on the 20th?
I think they just simply can't help themselves. They can't resist. They're so driven by their partisan ideology. I asked a friend of mine who's a senior State Department official just last night. I said, so, and he was really for this. He said, wow, we really showed him this time. And I said, does it change anything? Is it going to bring us a solution? And he said, no, not at all. then what are you talking about?
Right.
Why did you do this? Totally unnecessary. In medicine, there's something called the Hippocratic Oath. And it says, whatever you're going to do as a doctor, your first rule is do no harm.
Right.
This administration, it's the opposite. Whatever we do, turn over the tables, throw gasoline on the fire, throw the firecrackers into the room. It simply is the opposite of common sense, and it has to be ideological, Kimberly.
You're right. It's operating as an accelerant in the region that is already just, highly compromised. So 3 weeks left, and they seem to still be wanting to create problems.
Okay, Dr. Gorka. Richard Fowler asking a question.
Dr. Gorka, so here's my question. At the beginning, you talked about this idea that, the president has sort of made this big enemy of Netanyahu, but it was a couple months ago that President Barack Obama gave the Israelis a $38 billion, the biggest ever aid package in American history. I mean, is that not supporting our allies?
It is, but it's another piece of how schizophrenic this administration is. Remember, this was the administration that was, we're going to lead from behind. That's our bumper sticker. Wars in the Middle East are bad. What did the Obama administration do? In the first 9 months of the Obama administration, the first 9 months, this anti-war president killed more people with drone strikes than President Bush did in 4 years. This is the lack of consistency. It's the dangerous mix of when you add ignorance to arrogance. When you add those two things together, this is what you get.
I hear that, and I think if you were to ask folks in the Obama administration, they would say the reason why, and I'm not saying I agree with drones. I think they're problematic, but the ideal behind drones is we put drones out there so we don't have to, put our men and women in harm's way, and they can operate them effectively outside of that. But either way, I think the main point for me is if you ask any city struggling in America, ask people in Flint for a $38 billion aid package, I'm pretty sure they'd take it.
Wow. Dr. Gorka, it's Katie Pavlich here. I think we should point out that aid packages are passed by Congress, not by the
and
president.
signed by the president.
That's the first thing. But second, my question is, we have a new president who is coming into office now. The Israelis are clearly hoping and I think believe that he will be a better president for Israel than President Obama has been. But my question is on two fronts. How does President Trump mitigate the damage from this UN resolution? And the second question is, how does he navigate what we have now in the Middle East with Syria, with Iraq, with Egypt, with North Africa? I mean, how does he now try and put that fire out? Because as you've said, and as Kimberly also said, it is on fire.
And how long have I got, Katie? Maybe 40 seconds to fix the
I know. Sorry.
Okay. So number one, the resolutions of the Security Council are raised to the level of international law, so there's nothing we can do about that unilaterally. However, as the highest donor to the United Nations, as the most important, powerful nation in the world, we have a lot of leverage. The people who supported this, the 10 nations that supported this, will be punished, whether it's economically, whether it's diplomatically, or whether it's just rhetorically. They will be frozen out, at least for a period of time. That's clear from just the statements made already by President-elect Trump. What can we do in the Middle East? In the Middle East, the first thing that has to be done, and this, I've been stating this again and again and again, I've told General Flynn, other people on the transition team, look, the first thing we have to do is we have to win back our friends. There are people bleeding right now, Muslims bleeding for us and for our values in the Middle East. Remember that Jordanian fighter pilot burnt alive by ISIS. The nations of the Middle East that should be our friends, like Jordan, like Egypt, have been completely neglected and abandoned sometimes, like Egypt, by this administration. The first thing that the new commander-in-chief has to do is to build back those relationships, because they have to trust us if we are going to stabilize the Middle East, and that's what I expect Donald Trump to do.
Okay, Tom Shalhoub.
Dr. Gorka, Tom Shalhoub, I want to know why now? Why do you think the administration is changing now? If they really meant it, why didn't they approach Israel in this way earlier in their administration? Is it because it's just a parting shot and he doesn't mean it?
I can't talk for them. I think the best answer is I think you have it. I think it's sheer bloody mindedness. They're doing it because they can do it. And they want to send a message to all those people who are with them, who think that Israel is the evil force in the Middle East, and despite being surrounded by millions and millions of people who wish to do it harm, that somehow they are the dark force of the region. It's really, for somebody that lives in the real world, that understands who our true friends are. I have no explanation for you. Please, knock on the door of the White House.
Dr. Gregg, before we let you go, so the thought is, what was the intent of this? Was this to settle the score with Netanyahu, basically at the expense of the Israeli people, or was it to further complicate Donald Trump's foreign policy as he takes the office, takes the House January 20th?
Great question, Eric. Look, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I find them immensely entertaining, but they're called theories for a reason because they're not facts. And having watched the last 8 years, I don't see Machiavellian strategists in the White House. I see a person with an MA in fictional writing called Ben Rhodes as the Deputy National Security Advisor. These guys aren't Kissingers. These guys aren't big brains. They don't have a master plan. It is sheer, willful, bloody-mindedness and done out of spite. If I had to put money on it, Eric, it was done in a fit of pique to say, we can do this and we're going to do it to you. Happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah.
Kill two birds with one stone, I guess, also, Doctor. We're going to have to leave it there.
Ignorance and arrogance, like he said. It's so true.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gorka. Ahead, so much for a smooth transition in President-elect Donald Trump and President Obama in a war of words, but after a late-night call between the two, will there be a truce? Next on the 5.
This week, he would have beaten President-elect Trump if he ran for a third term, even though Americans soundly rejected his policies. Even some on his own side are stating the obvious. The president is to blame for not only Hillary Clinton's loss, but for destroying his Democratic Party. Here's an editor at the far left, Huffington Post.
You look at the destruction of the Democratic Party under Barack Obama's leadership, and you have to wonder, what was the political, what were the electoral benefits that he gave to the party? He leaves them in a much worse position. The states are decimated. They've lost control of the House and the Senate. The governorships are decimated. So yeah, maybe he is obviously a gifted candidate. He did win election twice by substantial margins. But his legacy as a politician is a bit muddied by all that.
So, Richard, my first question goes to you. Is winning the White House twice with President Obama worth losing 1,000 seats across the country and putting 33 Republicans in charge of governor's mansions across the country?
Oh, you're putting me on the hot seat.
We need some answers about how you're going to rebuild the party.
Oh, well, I think every party goes through its times and transitions. I think, the Republican Party was sort of decimated when we won in 2008, and we're going to have to rebuild. But I think that's a far stretch to say that this president hasn't done a lot to move this country forward. Not only do we have 72 consecutive months of job growth, but according to Gallup, the president has a 56% approval rating, which is one of the highest that we've seen in recent history. When George Bush left the White House, he had a 31% approval rating. The only person that beats Barack Obama is Ronald Reagan with a 63% approval rating. He can't run for a third term. That's very obvious. But I do believe that you cannot blame Hillary's loss on the president. Hillary didn't do a good enough job of selling her message to the American people.
Sure. Yeah, we agree with that.
How do you explain President Obama, who was probably Hillary's greatest advocate, surrogate on the campaign trail? Maybe his wife, Michelle, was the greatest one. What happens when he says, vote for Hillary is a vote for my legacy, and then I don't think people believed him.
I don't think voters believed him. I mean, you look at all those people who said, I voted for Obama twice, and then after voting for Obama twice, they voted for Donald Trump.
Is the current core Democratic ideology platform still intact? Do you want to push this forward the next 4 or 8 years?
Oh, absolutely.
Or do you have to do a quote-unquote autopsy, which the Republicans did 8 years ago?
No, I think the reason why we lost this election is because we didn't have a convincing narrative for working class Americans. And I think we've got to go back to those roots.
But you were sure of it until November 8th, November 7th, you guys were sure of it.
Candidates who ran on that type of message won their re-election.
No.
Right?
Well, Kimberly,
I'll tell you this. He said that he wanted to be a transformative figure in American politics, and he certainly was. He wanted to be transformative like Reagan. And other than Reagan, nobody did more to put conservatives and Republicans in office and back in the White House than President Obama. I mean, that's the result. He might have been able to move his own numbers and tick it up in terms of favorability, but the Democratic Party is left in complete ruin because it was more about this president than it was about the party.
Well, and Tom, they have a lot of rebuilding to do over at the DNC. They have their own civil war going on. How do you think that they're going to be able to move forward since they've devastated their bench, not in D.C. necessarily, but across the country?
Well, one thing they have to realize, I'm glad Richard made that point, is that approval rating is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything because President Obama, his approval rating is going to continue to be high. It's going to go sky high after he's out of office. I predict, let's go into the future, that President Trump will be reelected with the lowest approval rating in history. Again, proving my point that approval rating, it doesn't mean anything. Right. Personally, people think, oh, President Obama, he's a great guy. But they don't agree with his policies. Right. And so that's why Democrats lose.
I think here's the thing. One thing that we saw from the Clinton administration, right, what Bill Clinton did very well is he sold small things as big things, right? So when he gave out free lunch, which is a small thing in the grand scheme of things, he sold it as a big thing. This president did a lot of small things and was not good enough. And he said it himself at selling it. For example, folks, I mean, I'm being very real. The one bill that I always tone to is the credit card bill of rights. Your credit card bill now comes on the same day every month. Before, that didn't happen.
Okay.
They have to
We're
now
getting in the weeds
when
here
you
on
pay.
topics
No, that's not. That's an everyday working man issue. When you sit at the kitchen table,
No,
one,
you know what
it
an everyday
is.
working man issue.
It absolutely
you know what
is.
Really is substantially
Money to
higher
pay
than that.
the bill.
No, money, wages.
Money.
And we've been fighting you guys tooth and nail on
wages have been
wages.
stagnant for a decade. And I'm not saying only under Obama,
let's
but
raise the
only
minimum
under
wage
George
then.
Bush and President Obama, wages haven't budged in 10 years.
Here's the
finally starting to tick up.
Well, let's move on to our next topic with the transition because President Obama's term is over and Trump is coming in just a couple of weeks here. And right now it's a bit hard to tell if Mr. Obama and President-elect Trump are getting along. But yesterday Mr. Trump put out a tweet saying he's doing his best to disregard the many inflammatory statements and roadblocks from the president. He thought it was going to be a smooth transition and then wrote not. But later in the day, he appeared outside his home in Florida and said the transition was going smoothly and that the president phoned him and had a very nice conversation. So, Kimberly, we see these two guys kind of poking each other's egos a little bit, but as we've heard, the transition level at the staff is actually going pretty well.
Yeah, the transition process, I think, is going very well. He's ahead of the game by all accounts in terms of past presidents and putting people in important positions. So I think that's going very well. I think they're looking forward to these next 3 weeks happening and going by very quickly because it seems that, unfortunately, President Obama is having a hard time letting go of the strings. He's like still trying to control, make moves, do a lot of things right before he goes out. And you see President Trump, who people were saying, I wonder if he can be presidential. Well, he's showing that he can be presidential because he's not responding back or doing anything today or making any kind of comments given the developments of what's happening with Russia. He's biding his time and
Richard,
waiting.
why would Obama say something like, I would have beat Trump in the third term? Why would he say that?
I think it was very tongue-in-cheek because it can happen. But with that being said, I mean, it was tongue-in-cheek, but it can happen, right? Because he can't run for a third term. But I think beyond that point, I think there's something to be said about the Donald Trump Twitter account, which we'll be talking about for the next 4 years. You can't say consumer confidence is up. Thanks, Donald. I mean, that's not presidential.
Well, you want to talk now?
The highest it's been in 15 years.
That was a play on President Obama's thanks Obama line that he kept throwing out there. Thanks,
Donald. Well, the reason why consumer confidence is high is because for 8 years the president has been working on fixing this economy.
He lost 1,000 seats. We're gonna move on.
Hey, listen, but we created 72 consecutive months of job growth.
Stop, 1 second. There are fewer Americans working today than there were when President Obama took over.
Correct.
Period.
There was a 10% unemployment rate when President Obama took over. Actually higher than that. Now it's at 4%.
91 million people
4%,
left the workforce.
4%.
I think that Tom, what do you have to say about Obama being the legacy behind the new economic bump that we're seeing?
Well, listen, I don't care what day my credit card statement comes. I just want more money so I can pay it.
Right.
Exactly. A lot of people do care, Tom, though.
Especially after buying
Well, we'll give him that one amazing accomplishment.
There's more than just one.
Hey, your credit card bill comes on the same day.
And more people are defaulting on them than ever before. But at least we get the bill on the right day.
Have lots
by the way,
cards.
there's terror happening in San Bernardino. Your credit card bill.
Okay, moving on. All right, ahead. It's going to be a speech for the history books. President-elect Trump's already begun working on his inaugural address, and he reportedly told friends he's drawing inspiration from 2 former presidents. Find out which ones next.
I know.
In about 3 weeks, President-elect Trump will deliver the biggest speech of his life, his inaugural address. Stephen Miller, his incoming White House policy advisor, is helping him write it, but Mr. Trump is reportedly crafting the first draft himself and is looking to these 2 predecessors for inspiration.
Let every nation know whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Now, so there will be no misunderstanding, it's not my intention to do away with government. It is rather to make it work with us, not over us, to stand by our side, not ride on our back.
According to the Washington Post, the president-elect told some of his visitors yesterday that Reagan's style and Kennedy's articulation of grand national ambitions will be central to how he thinks in his own speech. Kimberly, you were rapt attention on Reagan.
I love it. Yes, well, Reagan and also on JFK. And Katie and I were kind of remarking to one another that he sounded like a Republican. Yeah. JFK did, and I know that's somebody that President-elect Trump really admires. And when Bill Gates was there, he said that after the meeting, that he reminded him of JFK. So I think these are two really important speeches and two important presidencies to draw inspiration from. These are people that he admires, and they're really similar to the message that he was echoing throughout his campaign, like make government work for you, efficient, effective, lean it out if you need to, and the idea too that the United States will not cower in fear. We will stand alone in times of adversity, and we will stand with our allies and beware our enemies.
Yes, Eric, Stephen Miller. Yeah. He does not mince words. No. He wrote the famous speech at the convention that everyone called dark. What are you expecting from this one? So these
speeches, they should last, I don't know, 15 to 25 minutes. I'm hoping it's not a real long one. Here's what I want to hear, though. So we heard Donald Trump, bring the fire, bring the flame, get the crowd going throughout the whole campaign, throughout the primary, through the general election. On Inauguration Day, when he's standing there with the Capitol behind him, I want to hear Donald Trump from the heart, because when he talks from the heart, he is influential. So, as evidenced by people who don't like Donald Trump will spend 15 or 20 minutes with him. They'll go to Trump Tower and they'll come out going, you know what? He's a good guy. He means well. He wants to win. And he wants the best for the country. I think if he does that for 15 minutes on the steps of the Capitol, he will win not only Republicans' hearts, anti-Trumper hearts, but also a lot of Democrat hearts.
Yeah. What do you think, Richard? What's the one thing he has to say to you and your friends to charm you?
I guess my heart's for sale now, huh? Everyone's heart's for sale.
Everybody, baby. Tu corazón, mi corazón.
Dos corazones.
Sí, dos corazón.
But in all seriousness, I think what I want to hear from this president is rebuilding how we rebuild America, right? So he talks about it. Obviously, he can't talk about policy, but at least framing up what this, how do we rebuild America? How do we, quote unquote, make America great again, if that's a thing? I mean, because I always want to, the question I always ask is, like, when was it not? What does great, make America great again mean? When was it great? So we can figure out when.
Well, there were a couple of instances in American history where you could say it wasn't so great. Well, one Jimmy Carter, the end of Jimmy Carter's.
No, just give me a year.
2009 and 2010, America was definitely on our heels.
I'm looking forward to Donald Trump in his inauguration address discussing what makes Americans proud to be Americans. And I think that he'll do a very good job of that. I like that he's pulling from Ronald Reagan, who was a very big advocate for small government. Yep. The federal government, according to almost everyone in America, is far too big, far too expansive, far too regulatory, has the boot of on the necks of individuals and on small businesses. So he can talk about, I think, what makes everyone proud to be an American rather than what makes us different and why we're divided. And I think that it will probably be pretty good based on his speechwriter and based on who he's drawing inspiration from.
Yeah, so he's starting and doing drafts himself, and Stephen Miller is hugely talented, and they echo the same voice and theme, so that they work very well together, and apparently the rest of the team members are working on it as well.
All right, next, it was one of the most popular gifts this Christmas, but is Amazon Echo more creepy than cool? The device could help solve a murder case in one state. Details ahead.
You may have heard about this story in the news. Amazon Echo, a popular personal assistance device, is now at the center of a murder investigation. Police in Arkansas are trying to get Amazon to share data collected from an Echo the night of a crime. It may contain evidence that could solve who killed a man in a hot tub. The device is selling like hotcakes this Christmas season. Amazon Echo is a hands-free speaker that you control with your voice. Echo connects to the Alexa voice service to play music, provide information, news, sports scores, weather, and more. Echo can hear what you say and how you say it any time of the day. Is that cool? Or is it creepy? Kimberly,
yeah,
you have one.
I have one, and so I asked Alexa before I left. I got one for my son. He researched and loved it a lot. So I asked him, I'm like, Alexa, give me news articles about you being subpoenaed for a murder investigation. Instead, she started playing me the updates for like NPR. So my son said, Mom, she's not telling you. I said, that's correct, because Amazon is saying they won't release the information. I find this fascinating as a former prosecutor. You want to use any tools you can to be able to get information. That's why you want stuff from cell phones and phone records. And I mean, Eric doesn't like this. I get it. It's so creepy. But this is the problem. I get it. So it's a violation, potentially, your privacy. You have it. When I started talking about her, she lit up because she heard her name.
They're not even knocking on the door anymore with a search warrant. They're going, let's go right inside the house. Go right inside.
But Amazon's not giving it over.
Not yet, but then we didn't think Verizon was giving over our phone records either, and they were as well. So I'm all for the technology. I like this, but I'm the guy who puts the tape over the camera on the TV.
Me too.
I'm afraid of hackers and everything that's going on in my house.
And I think to add to that, I think our phones are already listening to us. Have you ever try to Google search something in your phone and it's like you said it and then you put in one letter and the whole thing comes up? Because I think our phones are already spying on us.
Oh, yeah.
So I think Alexa increases the spying.
Yeah, that's why I didn't get it. I'm not comfortable with this. I bought some speakers this Christmas.
That doesn't talk.
I wanted ones that weren't listening to me. I mean,
everything is listening to you, Tom.
I'm not going to murder anyone in a hot tub, but I mean, maybe some minor crimes.
Oh my God.
There's some things I don't want
this back.
Alexa listening to.
This is why I don't let Alexa sleep in my bedroom. It's a big problem. Yeah, right?
Where do you keep your Alexa?
Who knows? This is my son's room.
Well, could you access and find out what your son is saying to when you're not there?
Well, but he stores stuff on there. Like he's like, Alexa, add this to my list, and it's like his list of things he wants or whatever, or things he doesn't want to forget, or things he's mad about.
Store so much information.
But it's
according to this, it's only 60 minutes, right?
That's recording you.
That's enough. Unless this thing can do my laundry, I don't want one. So I don't have one. I don't want one.
I didn't even get the Amazon button.
It's very interesting. She plays music. So you can say, like, Alexa, tell me a joke. And then she gives you one joke after.
This is the beginning of the end.
You ready for this, too? Here's a little twist in the story, too. So now Amazon has all this information on you, right? That's a lot of data, what you're ordering, what you like, what your likes are.
Yeah.
And now they can go ahead and who knows what they're going to do with it. They can use it for themselves. They could sell it. There are a lot of privacy issues with this. And by the way, when you sign up for these things, you sign away all your privacy rights.
Absolutely.
There'll be no Alexa in the bowling household.
But it can do your laundry. It can start your appliances. So you can.
Why are you telling me this? This is tempting now.
Yeah, it does everything.
Alexa,
and all the weather updates and sets your alarm and wakes you up very nicely in the morning.
Didn't they make a movie about this a couple years ago with Joaquin Phoenix? The movie called Her, and he fell in love with his computer. Something like it was a letter to the future.
There's a disorder
She had a great
like
voice,
that.
though.
Right.
The
People
voice.
fall in love with their
I fell in love with the voice.
Well, I'm not going to worry about it because I don't want one. No thanks.
Katie doesn't want one.
Nope. Sorry.
One more thing is up next.
It's time now for one more thing. Do you need some comfort? Are you stressed out when you travel? Do you wish the TSA would actually do a better job? Don't worry, hug a pig. Yeah, literally. So meet Lilu. Lilu is an airport therapy pig. How cute. What a cutie patootie. So she's a small spotted Juliana pig, in case you were wondering, that helps calm the travelers, and she's the first non-dog member of the airport's WAG Brigade. Where could this be happening, you ask, if you can't read the screen? San Francisco, my old hometown. So the WAG Brigade walks through the airport with the handlers. They soothe everyone's anxiety. So their animal, like Xanax, essentially, hopes of making the experience more enjoyable. Like when you lose your bag or your flight gets canceled or, you know, whatever. You get detained in an awkward strip search. This will make you feel better about it. I think it's very, very cute. So let me ask you something, everybody. You want to watch, we got bowling on O'Reilly night. We got me on Hannity tonight, and I've got a fantastic all-star list of guests. Kellyanne Conway is going to be on from the Trump transition team and chief advisor to the president-elect. Anthony Scaramucci, also from the transition team. Dr. Thomas Sowell, who is retiring after many years, Katie, of having an incredible column.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be a nice conversation to have. Incredibly, yeah, very bright man. And Dr. Sebastian Gorka. So that was like the tease that you got earlier when he was on the 5. So join us at 10 if you can, and bowling at 8 on
And at 8, take a look at this one, this full screen. Pull it up. 8 o'clock, O'Reilly Factor will be sitting in. We have Reince Priebus, and he's going to weigh in on the recent the Russian sanctions, the White House White House sanctions, and whether or not Donald Trump, the president-elect, will respond. That's going to be a big interview. And also, I have Harvey Levin, who TMZ. He's the producer and founder of TMZ. TMZ broke the story on both Carrie Fisher dying and Debbie Reynolds dying last night. So we'll sit down with Harvey and talk to him about both of their lives, their legacies, and where they go from here. So stay tuned for that. Also, this one right here, don't forget, New Year's Eve.
There we go.
Kimberly and I will be doing All American New Year's 11 to, check it out, it's actually 10 to 1 a.m. Unless they cut us an hour back. I'm not sure, KG.
I don't know what happened here.
10 to
They
1,
told
isn't
us
it?
we got to be here very early.
I'm pretty sure it's 10 to 1, but whatever.
I like the picture of us, though. We look like we're on vacation in Florida or something.
Too bad it'll be cold.
Tan. Oh, thanks, Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer Fowler.
It's not going to be that cold. You're
Really
like
has
35 degrees. That's great.
jacket that everyone needs to tune in.
Check out the jacket.
Thank you,
She's a fabulous
Katie.
coat. She's got ready to go.
With little
So.
And I heard
sparkle
Eric's going
scarf.
shirtless.
Potentially.
Well, Kathy Griffin said she
The
may
shirt
take
off
off her
with
top, and I
Kathy.
said, well, we'll see.
Uh-oh.
Let's not.
You know,
see
we're
that.
right next
All
to
right.
like Anderson and Kathy. There may be like a cable news rumble.
It's not going to be that crazy.
Ding, ding,
Everyone,
ding, ding.
tune in. It's going to be PG for the most part. Maybe
It's gonna be
not
all
until later
American.
hours.